Welcome to Salsido Paranormal. I'm your host, James Salsido, and tonight I will be talking with a special guest about their thoughts and experiences. As always, you can find all episodes of my show along with links to ways to listen, and I just totally blanked on the intro here. Support the show at the website, and that is salsidoparanormal.com. That's SALSIDO paranormal.com. And support is never expected, but always appreciated, as there are expenses in making these shows. And there are many ways to support the show. You can share the show with others and rate and review it on your favorite podcast platform. You can also sign up for the Patreon feed and get all the extra content there for as little as $1 a month. And you can check out the merchandise store and get all kinds of shirts and some other items there as well, with designs made by friends of the show. And please follow friends of the show. And that would be Jen, the Arcane Observer, who usually joins me on Saturdays whenever she's able and has her own channel. Also, Ricky of the Anything is Possible podcast, who I join on Sunday nights to talk all things paranormal. And Michael Strange, host of Trouble Minds Radio and the Trouble Minds Radio Network, KUAP, digital broadcasting. And I think that takes care of everything, so I'm very happy to be doing this show. I wasn't sure I was going to be able to manage it, but glad to be here. And tonight, joining me, we have Seriah from Where Did the Road Go? So thank you for being here.
Yeah, of course.
So I've been, as I said before we started recording here, I've been listening to your show for years now. I don't think I've listened to all the episodes. I've never quite managed to go back and listen to them from the very beginning, because once I started my own show, didn't have quite as much time to listen as much as I want. But I've really enjoyed your show and your panel discussions and your experiences shows where you get you find people send things into you and or you find things online. And so I really wanted to have you on my show to talk about your own experiences and just maybe some of the things you found most interesting as far as other people's experiences, or just your thoughts on how all this anomalous stuff works.
Okay. All right. Do you have a place you want to start?
Well, nothing in particular. I was thinking maybe just whatever's on your mind lately about your own experiences, whatever's the most interesting. Are you been thinking about the most lately?
Um, honestly, lately I feel like I'm just stuck.
Mm.
So, I actually talked about this in a recent show where I just feel like I am not progressing anywhere for some reason. Usually my experiences take me somewhere.
Okay.
And now I've just had a few odd ones, like waking up with a beeping noise above me that what couldn't have come from anything. Things like that, like little things, little poltergeist activity, nothing like major. But usually there's synchronicities that I follow, I figure out, and then things shift. And I've been dealing with the same synchronicities for quite a while now, and I just don't know what to make of them or what to do with them.
Yeah. Yep. It's I have sort of brief times where I'll get like one or two things in maybe a month, and other times where it's like a few things or more in a month.
Oh yeah,
It's really it comes and goes, and I don't know. I haven't really had any feeling of major or even minor synchronicities with my experiences, but they're mostly just almost like what you were saying, minor poltergeist stuff or just sounds around my apartment.
yeah.
Here and there. I have someone that likes to tap on the blinds in the front once in a while, just one time, one tap.
Yeah, I think I remember you
And
talking about that on Where Did the Road Go?
yeah, so that happens once in a while. But even that recently has really slowed down. So it's weird. I don't have too many things happen. I noticed when I first got here to this apartment, and I don't know if you ever noticed this or heard about this, there was a lot of activity here. And then eventually it calmed down. And even more so just over the years. I've been here now about 20 years, and it's just over the years it's gotten to be less and less overall.
Hmm. Well, it's not as new, it's not as liminal.
Right.
It becomes more routine. so that lessens activity most of the time.
Yeah, and it's funny. Speaking of liminality and I guess possible synchronicities, I did have one thing. Last, I listened to your recent show in your Patreon with Brennan from
Mhm.
the Ghost Story guys, which I really love that show as well. And the subject came up of like stairways or doorways.
Yes.
And that night or day I listened to that show, I was supposed to have my co-host Jen, who I mentioned in the beginning there, join me for a show to talk about that kind of thing, just anomalous things happening in doorways, stairways, closets, all those kinds of places where no one spends a ton of time all at once. And so I commented on it in the Patreon forum, and then that night it didn't work out. My co-host wasn't able to join me, so I went back that night to listen to the Patreon and all the comments and everything, and saw you comment, and I just had to add because, yeah, funny enough, we didn't get to do that show tonight. I have to postpone that for another time. So it's just right on that edge of everything there, which is really
Yeah.
fascinating.
Yeah. And I mean, stairways again, they're liminal. Um, for some reason, Jeff Ritzman had noted that a lot of activity tends to happen around bathrooms.
Yeah, I've heard that.
And the regular footsteps we get in this place are in the hallway by the washer, dryer, and bathroom door. And he would see the lights in his hallway and stuff by the bathroom. I don't know why that's a point. You know,
Yeah,
someone tried to
bathrooms. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I was gonna say someone tried to say that it's because, well, it's they're following the water, but there's pipes all through your house. They're not, you
Yes,
know?
it is weird. It's a weird thing where like I've heard that reasoning before, and I always wonder about that because yeah, there's pipes everywhere, and but I mean activity does seem to happen a lot in bathrooms or kitchens.
Yes. Yeah.
I've heard as well. So I don't know. I mean, if it's the water plus the electricity, but even then, there's electricity throughout the whole place. So
Right.
not
Exactly.
sure.
I've had a combo where I've been in the bathroom and I've heard something massively moving around in the kitchen.
Mm,
And this even happened when I was alone, when I was living alone, and there was no one else in the house. And, you know, like I'd go out, nothing was moved, nothing was touched, but man, did it sound like someone was moving around, you know, like really making a ton of noise.
yeah, that's
The
amazing.
wall wall to the bathroom is the wall to the, you know, the other side is the kitchen.
Okay.
So you're really hearing it reverberate like somebody's opening and closing doors and drawers and taking stuff out. And I fully expect to go in there and find something, and there's just never anything there.
Yeah, that is odd. I had there was one night when I first moved in here. This was back when I was still sleeping in the bedroom before I turned it into a storage room, and I heard one night it woke me up. I heard this crash of something massive made of glass just crash to the floor in the kitchen, which didn't make sense because I don't have a lot of glassware because if it breaks, I'm not going to be able to see where all the pieces went to.
Right.
And so got up and went to look in the kitchen, and I even sort of just slowly felt around the floor with my hands, thinking, "Is it there?" And I'm just not seeing it, but it sounded like it fell from the top of the fridge. Which again, I would not put anything like that breakable on the top of the fridge.
Right.
And nothing there at all, and nothing never happened again. So I don't know if that was just a residual thing or some kind of time anomaly where I was hearing it from another time. Because
Yeah.
I've really become more open to that possibility of time anomalies in places over the years.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. It's definitely one of the things I factor into everything. Like, okay, now let's see how time affects this.
Yeah.
Forward and backwards. Because, I mean, obviously, ghost hunters and stuff always are like, well, what happened here in the past? It's like, but what's going to happen here?
Yes. Yep. Because we're only experiencing time in our own way physically here.
Yeah, we're just
But
a point.
yeah. So looking at the chat here, Ricky says we all hit plateaus in life, but if you keep on keeping on, you can get past them. And then Mike says retro causality has entered the chat. Yes. So and just for everyone listens to this, either here live or after the fact, I would, like I said, if you like everything I talk about in my show, um, Where the Road Go is right there with all that and even more. So I definitely recommend checking that out. And there's a huge catalog of shows at this point,
Yeah.
which is amazing.
Because I've been doing it since 2013.
Yeah,
Beginning of
that's
2013.
and the neat thing about that to me is with your show, it started with radio, terrestrial radio, I believe. Is that right?
It's still on terrestrial radio.
Right.
And
Okay.
I locally will run into people who just listen to it on the radio. And I'm like, it's online too. And they're like, yeah, I don't do that.
Well, that's a good thing it's on the radio then. But
Yeah.
yeah.
I'm surprised that so
No,
many people still listen to it on the radio, and that's cool.
it is.
I never imagined doing a podcast because podcasts were so niche at the time in 2013. They were just starting to come about.
Right.
But I did the show, and I figured I should do this on the radio, like coast to coast and stuff like that. And then eventually said, well, I'm also going to throw it up as a podcast and on YouTube and stuff, just so more people can hear it. And then it blew up, and that took me completely by surprise.
That's how I found you. Yeah.
Which one?
The podcast.
Ah, okay. A lot of people found me on YouTube. The show did really well on YouTube until they changed all their algorithms.
Of course.
They basically killed it and told me they killed it. They're like, oh, we've recommended you this percent less, and you've had that same percent less views. And it's like, so this is your fault. Okay.
Yeah. I only put my things on YouTube just for last resort to get people to come and listen to the podcast feed. But it's a huge thing, and people for YouTube, which is just frustrating because I really don't get a ton of views there either compared to the podcast feed.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, totally. I get a fraction on YouTube, like a fraction of what I used to on YouTube. But there are some people who absolutely love using YouTube for it, so that's cool. I'm still going to put it up. More people hear it, the better.
Oh, definitely. Yeah. It's been a lot of fun doing the show the way I do it, and so I wanted to ask you too about things that have happened to you while you've been doing your shows, because I always find that fascinating when people have experiences with hearing sounds or objects moving or all those kinds of things.
I don't think that's ever happened. Yeah, I mean, once when I was doing my music show, there were footsteps from the hallway. And the funny thing is that I had just mentioned that there were footsteps in the hallway. Sometimes people hear them. And the guy who was sitting closest to the hallway looks at me because he was from a band. He'd never been here before. Sorry. And he goes,
Okay.
Wait, there's nobody back there? And I'm like, no, why? He's like, because I just heard loud footsteps like 10 minutes ago. I just assumed there was somebody back. And then he started freaking out a little bit.
Wow. Yeah, that's always fascinating to me, that. And then when people catch voices on their shows or hear voices on their shows, where it doesn't even catch, but they hear it through, then sometimes even their headsets. I've had that with me, where I heard a woman's voice twice. Just like in between, I heard it with my ears, in between my headset. So, but it didn't show up on the audio. And one time it was just like a sigh, and one time it was like a hello, and that was it.
Well, I haven't had that happen, but Shirley Black one night, while we were doing a show, kept getting distracted, and finally we're like, are you with us? And she's like, I'm sorry. She goes, I keep hearing voices in my headset. And she's like, and I take the headset off and they're not there. And the headset's only, connected to this. So I don't know where these voices are coming from. And one of the voices said something like robot circles or something like that.
Yes.
And Gwendolyn was supposed to join us that night and was too exhausted to do so. So she went to sleep. So around the same time that Gwendolyn was trying to get to sleep, she started hearing voices, and one of those voices said the same phrase, like robot circles or something, very, very unique sort of a phrase. right around the same time Sheryl Lee was hearing it. And so it was,
Yes, I remember.
yeah, I
Yeah,
talked to Gwendolyn the next day and I'm telling her about the stuff with Sheryl Lee, and she's like freaking out, going, wait, robot circles? That's what I heard.
that is fascinating. Yeah, it's and those kinds of things where it's multiple people in multiple locations that have
Yeah.
no idea what the other person is experiencing until after, to me are amazing because that's pretty hard to come up with a logical, regular explanation for that.
Yeah. Yeah. There's stuff happened with Gwendolyn for sure. She there was one night we were on the phone and I had one earbud in and the other out, and she started hearing an owl. But she didn't
Mm,
know owl. It's an I forget what it's called, but it makes a whinny, like a horse whinny sound, like a it sounds like a horse.
right.
And she's in her backyard and she's like, "What the hell is that?" And I can't hear it through the earpiece. And she's looking around the yard and finally she sees the owl and she's like, "It's a small bird. It's an owl." And I'm like, "Huh." And we Google it, and sure enough, there's an owl that makes a sound like a horse whinnying. And a few minutes later, or like 20 minutes later, whatever it is, I'm like, "Ooh, I just heard it." And she's like, "No." I'm like, "What do you mean no?" Like, she's like, It stopped. It was outside my window."
Oh,
And I've never heard that before. Now I've heard it since, but before that, I have never heard that owl. And it literally was like it went from there to here because it stopped there and then started here.
that is amazing. I've only ever heard an owl once that I can think of as far as in person, and it was really odd when it happened. And I see your question there in the chat, Mike. I'll get to that in a minute here. But it was really odd because I live in an apartment complex, and now, and for years there was just a very thin line of trees behind my place in the road, just a small. I don't even know if it's paved or not, but there were some more trees behind my place. But now there's another apartment building, different complex and everything. And so this happened a few years ago, and I just heard an owl hooting once,
Hmm.
and then never again, never before, never since. And I was getting ready to do a show that night, and I don't remember now what the show was about. It wasn't to do with anything with owls, but it was still a show, and never happened again. And I got this weird feeling like this is not normal here. Like I never hear them here, and I have a small apartment. I can hear everything that goes on behind my place, especially with my ears the way they are. If I don't have any music or TV going, I can hear people moving around back there, all that stuff.
Right.
And it was really odd. So, but yeah, and it's the whole owl thing is fascinating. But so Mike in the chat says, where do synchronicities come from? From Seriah's take. So from your perspective.
I don't know. That's a really good question. Part of me almost wonders if our higher self is like playing a video game, and the video game is to guide us. And one of the things that can guide us with is synchronicities. I'll just keep showing them this and see if they notice and go that way. Um, Other times I think it's just something the other out there trying to show me a specific thing or take me down a specific path or current. Um, I don't know where they come from. There's a book, and I can't remember who wrote it, where he suggests that synchronicities are actually a form of psi, that we create them, and the more we look for them, the more we create them. I think that's not impossible. I'm not sure
Right.
if that fits 100% for me, but I think it definitely can happen. I think that's definitely one of the possibilities of what's going on. I With any of this stuff, I think there's multiple things that lead to a similar looking outcome.
Yes.
So ghosts can be spirits of the dead, but they can also be a dozen other things, and it would be hard to discern which is which because we really don't understand it.
Yeah. I agree. Yep. That's one of the things I always talk about here is that at this point in my mind, all the possibilities are probably exist somewhere in
Right.
some way. But figuring out which one is which at any given time, good luck.
Right. Like I wouldn't be shocked if there's a flesh and blood Bigfoot.
Right.
However, uh, most of the evidence suggests that most of what people encounter is not a flesh and blood Bigfoot, or it is a flesh and blood temporary construct rather than something that is just an undiscovered animal. But you look at like
Yeah.
Himalayas or the deep Pacific Northwest, yeah, there absolutely could be an undiscovered primate in those areas.
Right.
Both can
Yeah.
be
But that. Sorry. Yeah. I was just gonna say, but then you have places like deserts or near deserts where they're seen, or where there's no next to no forest at all, and people still see it. I mean, they see them in cities sometimes.
Yep, yep,
So
and they would have a big appetite. There's no way we wouldn't know if they were living even in a wooded area that's not, with a lot of people around, people are gonna see them.
right.
I don't care how smart or good they are at camouflage, we don't have a single body or verifiable remain of one of these creatures, so and now you have the whole Patterson-Gimlin film coming into question, which has always been kind of a question for me.
Yeah, any kind of evidence. I mean, to me, there's always going to be uh, ways you can say, yeah, it's real, or yeah, it's fake. Because, especially, I mean, the further back you go, you're not going to always have access to the original evidence,
Yeah,
and then people, unfortunately, of course, are going to start passing away, and there go any eyewitness accounts.
right.
Um, so it is fascinating, especially with that and other things like Dogman or werewolves. People have claimed to see those, and to me, I especially wouldn't be surprised that those are not physical either, because again, they're these massive creatures that are seen, and some even appear and vanish. Then
Right.
how are they around physically all the time?
I think there are things that are on the edge, and they may not look like what we're seeing, but they're on the edge of our reality, and they can push themselves just a little bit into our perceivable realm, and then they immediately start to deteriorate because it takes a lot of energy for them to do that. Hence, you get a sulfur smell with so much of this stuff. The smell of sulfur is decay.
Yes, and that to me is fascinating because the thing I always heard about that, of course, was the evil narrative.
Yeah.
Everything paranormal or anomalous is evil, and if it smells like sulfur, if it smells like something's burning, it's a sign of evil.
Which is more superstition than anything else.
Right. Yeah. But the sulfur and the breaking down of the physical form it makes total sense to me, why people would not find these whatever is out there when
Right.
it goes like that.
Yeah, it's just energy pushing into a manifestation. So you can get things like footsteps or footprints or the occasional what looks like evidence, but then it disappears, and it's like, yeah, well, the rest of it disappeared.
Yeah. Yep. That's definitely a thing. Looking at the chat here, thank you all for being here and posing these questions. Mike says, so mass psychosis is typically a negative term in the paranormal space, but how much do you think is accurate within a modern mass media zeitgeist?
Hmm. I don't know. Um, Mass psychosis, I guess I need better definition of what he means by that as relation to the paranormal.
Okay. I guess that I'm wondering if he means just people sort of it not being paranormal, and the
Oh,
explanation being that
okay.
they're
So like the drone thing, for instance,
right.
where you had people seeing planes and being like, "It's a drone," and it's like, "Nope, that's a plane. Very clearly a plane." I mean, yes, there were some weird drones out there, but 99% of the things that were being reported were just people looking up at the sky for the first time.
Right.
So,
And
I mean, that stuff does happen. I mean, and that's why, because people don't usually look up. And so when
right.
they do start looking up, they're like, "Oh, what's that? Oh, what's that? What's that?"
And yeah, and at this point, I don't, unless there's other things going on. If I see any kind of light or object in the sky, my first thought is it's made by humans from somewhere.
Right.
Um,
Right.
unless there's some kind of telepathic contact, or I mean, if it hasn't happened to me, but if any kind of entities show up, then maybe not. But apparently, I was wrong on that. My point of view there, or not point of view, but my thought. Mike says one person sees a thing, then tells somebody, then everybody starts seeing the thing.
Yes. So I think sometimes this, like, okay, so you have like the lizard man encounter down in, I think it was North Carolina, that Lyle Blackburn looked into.
Okay.
Like Bigfoot, I think we can safely say there's not a lizard man running around, but yet tons of people saw the lizard man. There were footprints. There were, like multiple people saw this thing at once, and it lasted for a little bit, like they often do in flaps, and then they disappear. And I don't think it's mass psychosis. I think this stuff doesn't have a set form until we give it to it.
Right.
Like our brain has a Rolodex, and the first person to encounter this weird bit of, let's just say, a weird bit of consciousness that doesn't have a set form, and they go, "Oh, I don't know what this is," and some people will just not see it. Their brains will
Right.
just filter it out. That's not there. Don't worry about it. Other people's brains will see it and be like, "This is, I don't know what this is. This is new. It's unknown. Well, that's scary. What else is scary? Well, monsters are scary." And then lizard man. Well, lizard man would be, oh my God, it's a lizard man. And that all happens in a second. You don't even know what's going on. It's your brain looking for something to put on that thing you're seeing to show it to you. And then you tell people, and then other people encounter this weirdness, and their brain now has that Rolodex where it can go, oh, that's the lizard man guy. And you'll notice,
Right.
like, the descriptions a lot of times are not the same. They're close,
Yes.
but not the same. If they were faking it, if they were lying, they'd just be copying the other person's description. Or if it was a singular flesh and blood creature, the description would be more uniform. The
Yeah.
fact that the description is varies suggests either there's a whole bunch of them suddenly running around, or it's the best our brains can do with perceiving this stuff. They're encountering something that our brains don't understand, don't know how to process. They either have to ignore it, or they got to figure out a way to show it to us that makes sense.
Yeah. And if I'm not mistaken, this was a different case, but wasn't there one of I think it was a teenager that their car got damaged by this thing?
Yes. Yeah.
And so it's making damage,
Yep.
but
And
like you're saying, it's still it goes away, and people see different versions of it. So the whole idea to me is the physical and non-physical can both be happening just at
yes.
different times or at the same time in some
And
cases.
I think there's a co-creation aspect, and there is a little bit of that, like, mass hysteria type of stuff where people will have an encounter and it'll be scary, and then other people see things that aren't that, but they think it's that because now they're all, ultra sensitive to everything. And again, it's kind of like looking up. Like
Right.
people don't normally look up that much, and suddenly you start looking up and you're like, what's all this stuff in the sky? It's the same stuff that was there before. I
Well,
remember
satellites or airplanes or space station or Starlink now,
yep.
all these things.
I had been down by the lake at night, I think just taking pictures, and I started to leave, and I caught a flash out of the corner of my eye, and I was like, what was that? I'm like, was that my eye? Like, what? I don't know. And I started driving, and it happened again. And I'm like, am I seeing something? And after a while, it happened enough times I stopped and I Googled, is there a meteor shower tonight? And it said yes. And I went, okay. And then I actually saw one streak down. And I went, okay, I'm seeing meteors. All right. But
Yeah, and there's another case of yours that you experienced you had happen where you weren't sure what you were seeing, and it was something. It was I forget what it's called now. That
laser
it was
spectrum?
yes.
Yeah.
I'd love to hear about that one if you don't mind talking about that for a bit.
Yeah. That was freaky because I do have a dash cam in my car for various reasons. Um And one of them is so I can, if something weird happens, I have it on camera. And so I was driving down this road I normally don't go down, and this flash of green light went across the road. And I went, what the hell was that? And I didn't see anything for a moment. And I looked ahead of me and I saw a green orb of the same color just kind of floating in front of me. But it was a distance down. It was too dim for the dash cam to pick that up. But when I got home, like I went back on that road and I didn't see anything. And I looked around to see if, if anything made sense, and it didn't. And when I got home, I'm like, oh, it's probably on my dash cam. So I pulled the footage. And yeah, you see this green light go across the road. And like I said, the second one, the orb was too dim. And I'm like, well, what the hell was this? Because it's obviously connected to that orb, because that orb was the exact same color. And it took me a while. It took me till I showed my roommate the clip, and she went, that's a laser thing. My friend has one. And I went, what? And so I looked it up, and they make these, it was right by a winery, and they make these laser scarecrows that shoot out a laser beam that apparently scare the birds to keep them from eating all the grapes and stuff. And they were just installing them in this winery. So they were not aimed properly. So they were just shooting wherever. So yes, I did actually see a green light go across the road. And that orb in the distance was one of those lasers just hitting trees or something in the distance. And once I had that, I was like, okay, I could totally see someone thinking something paranormal happened to them, because it didn't feel paranormal to me.
Right.
And I kept driving up and down that road to see if I could figure out what it was. And once I figured out what it was, there were two things that happened. One, they put a new one in, and it was aimed across the road into the woods, and it was windy. And as I'm driving, I look up and I see this green orb just splitting through the leaves, and I'm like, what? Oh, well, that's the laser projector right there. It was just, it looks so much like an orb floating through the trees, but it's just a laser, shining on the different leaves. But one of the last times I came back up that road, because I just started going down and back up that road when I went to places, a giant owl lifted off the ground and started flying right next to my car. And I was just like, okay, that was freaky. Also not on camera, because it was to the left side of the car, and I didn't have side cams on that car.
Of course. Of course,
Yeah,
it's going to be right next to you, right off camera.
and it was huge.
So, what do you think about that whole idea that in some cases owls are not what they seem to be?
I think that can happen with anything.
Right.
Like, I don't think it's just owls. I think we think of owls as weirder, weirder creatures, right? So I think that owls tend to be if we're going to replace something with an animal, it's going to be an owl.
Yeah.
Just because owls, they're weird animals. They really are. I mean, if we were underwater, it would be an octopus.
Right.
Because those are weird animals too. But we're unlikely to see an octopus in a field.
Yeah, and I mean, thinking about owls and the whole supposed UFO connection, owls fly. UFOs, they're unidentified flying objects.
And the
So,
owl have those eyes,
hmm
those really stark, penetrating eyes.
yeah. Yeah, I really enjoyed the times you had Mike Clellan on your show.
Yeah, Mike's awesome.
Yeah, definitely.
I mean, and like he relates cases where someone saw a 6-foot owl standing in their driveway. Well, there are no 6-foot owls. So again, though, I think it's that brain Rolodex saying, I don't know what this is. Owl? Sure, it's an owl. It's a weird thing, but it's also not that scary, so we can just continue on.
Yeah, and this makes me think of rare cases I've read about online where people see humanoid shapes, but it's just like they're white. They're all white.
Yes.
There's no features. Sometimes there's not even any face. And I just wonder, is that something that the person hasn't put an image onto yet, or hasn't chosen a form, or is in between changing maybe in some way?
Yeah,
Because I've come across these over the years, and it's always similar things. I saw this, pale figure, humanoid, but no clothes, no features on them, no hair, just a solid mass of a person shape.
yeah, I think we talked about that on the last listener story show, if I'm not mistaken.
Could be. I don't
I
remember
think
now, which is because I listen so much. But yeah.
yeah, it was the one that I think just Brennan and I did. It was supposed to be Adrian was supposed to be there too, which is ironic because she has an encounter like that.
That's right. I remember now.
Yeah. So like I read that because it was actually I think in my Discord from somebody from a while back that I had just missed because I can't keep up with social media is the problem.
Oh yeah.
So I went back through it. I'm like, I have this whole listener story channel. I should check and see if what's in there. And I went, oh, this is interesting. And it was a guy who saw, yeah, a bunch of plain white beings. He and his friends saw them just like working on a car. And to me, it suggested the same sort of archetype you get in some older UFO encounters where the UFO lands and they're working on the UFO.
Yeah.
But you're
Yeah.
right.
And
It could just be a template.
yeah, that's what I always wonder, because it just, I mean, biologically, it doesn't make sense.
Right.
If you're a biological creature, you're gonna need a mouth and, nose, probably. I mean, as far as what we know of now, anyway. I always like to put that out there because that's one of the things that cracks me up is when people say, "Well, that can't happen because that's not how things work."
Right. Right.
Well, okay. As far as we know right now, that could be true.
Or you
Um,
get the UFO people who will say the like people in the military where they're like, well, I would know if that's one of ours. It's like, no, you wouldn't. There's some black projects out there. How would you know? You would know if it was
yeah,
something prosaic, something we already know about. Yes, almost certainly. If you're in the Air Force or whatever, and you're working with planes, yeah, you're gonna know all the standard stuff. But there's a ton of black projects, and who knows what they're coming up with. You're not gonna
yep,
know that. No one's gonna know all of that because
no,
it's all compartmentalized.
and that again is why whenever I hear about just encounters with lights or craft, not that I discount that it can't be anything anomalous, but my first thought is, well, it's probably something made by some human somewhere. Uh,
It's hard to
because,
sort.
yeah, yep,
It
sorry.
it's hard to sort out because we don't know. Like, if you look at a case from 1850, okay, yeah, that's probably weird if someone saw a light zipping across the sky back and forth. But in, 2025, it's like, well, that could be any number of things. Maybe it's anomalous, but how do you tell the difference?
I've been reading the Book of the Damned on my show, just reading it and then commenting on it.
Right.
Um, and I'm gonna go do that with all four of Fort's books on anomalous things, because that has been a lot of fun. Uh, just going over all that, because it seems to me anyway that he was talking about quote unquote aliens and quote unquote UFOs before those terms were even thought of much, if at
Yeah,
all.
absolutely. I mean, even when we had Foo Fighters in World War II, they weren't thought of as aliens. They were just like they thought that everyone thought it was the other person's weaponry.
Yeah. Yeah. So I guess since we have you on here, we should probably go over, and this is my least favorite thing to talk about too, is the whole disclosure thing.
It's nonsense, and it's always been nonsense, and it will continue to be nonsense. I mean, that's the quick take on it. I mean, it's a revolving cycle that has been going on ever since UFOs came about, where we think either A, the government is hiding something, and maybe they are, maybe they aren't, but they're not going to tell us anything that's not in their benefit. There's no amount of pressure we can put on them that will cause them to tell us anything that they don't want to.
Right.
And the example I currently use is look at the Epstein files.
Hmm.
They are supposed to legally be released, and guess what didn't happen? Because the people in power don't want them released. So you think UFOs are going to get released if something that both Congress and the Senate voted to release isn't getting released?
Right. Yeah,
Yeah.
and Ricky in the chat says disclosure is for a distraction and to set up a false flag or cover for our own tech.
Yes.
So, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. That and to up the military budget, for space and stuff like that. Because we
Can
do
never
want
have too much money.
we want to militarize space. So I mean, this is how you do it: is you convince them there's a potential threat. The only good thing that's come out of it is they have at least acknowledged that there's a phenomena, even if they're trying to push it toward demons now.
Yes.
But I mean, it's the same thing. We've literally been seeing an organized version of this since the 90s. And it cycles, and it cycles faster and faster now because of social media and the way the world communicates. I mean, back in the 90s, it took a while for one of the cycles to run through. But you're seeing the same people. Like, they just keep popping up, like Richard Doty or Bob Lazar. And it's just like, oh my God, again? Really?
Yeah. Yep. I agree. Yeah, it's I've always felt like, why do we need disclosure? If you look at all the people that have had experiences throughout time, and accept that even just a fraction of them are right about what they saw, there's your disclosure.
Yeah. Well,
Like,
and
yeah,
it also it seems to be a very personal experience, even if multiple
yes,
people see it. The main experience seems to be more of a transformational personal experience, which is not something the government can disclose to you. Because I don't think it's aliens. I mean, if it is, it's not aliens in the way we think it is. It may be very alien to us. It may be saying trying to communicate and create a bridge of some sort. But I
yeah.
don't believe they're extraterrestrials flying here in spaceships and abducting people.
I always wonder about that too. When I find accounts from people that have had experiences, and they become frightened, obviously, and I can understand that in a way. But how often are things happening because it's just an attempted communication, and it just doesn't go well? It's just the people are too freaked out, um, either because of just whatever the feelings they have, or because of popular culture. All the things we've been talking about, where it all has to be evil, uh,
Right.
and or it all has to be something or someone appearing as someone good or something good, because it's evil, because it's always trying to trick you. And so I always feel like when things happen, especially when it's like a one-time thing where someone hears or sees something and then that's it. And to me, that always is. I can imagine whoever's there, sort of being like, "Whoa, man, that didn't go well. I won't try that again. I guess I'll leave them alone." I always wonder how often that happens.
And I also wonder how often that people do have other experiences, but they don't want to say anything because they already felt crazy once. If you start saying you're having multiple experiences, well, now people are going to know you're crazy, right? But it seems like the multiple experiences are more common than the one-offs, especially with more interpersonal type of experiences. Like seeing a weird light in the sky is one thing, but if someone has an entity encounter or anything that's really distinctly paranormal and across the board, like people who see Bigfoot will also end up seeing lights, uh, and you have all kinds of connections with Bigfoot in the paranormal. Um, so I think there's just that ridicule factor that stops people from talking about some of it.
Right.
Sometimes maybe it just wasn't anything special.
That too. I do think things happen at random sometimes, or at least random as far as we can tell.
Right, right. And yeah, I'm sure
Yeah.
that is totally the case.
And again, that's covering all the possibilities there. It's either random or it's not.
Right.
But how do we always tell? That's that's the tricky part, and that's why I think none of this has really been nailed down to where it's not thought of as paranormal or anomalous anymore.
Right. Right. And I don't think there's a line between like
Right.
paranormal and not paranormal. I think it's just that our culture doesn't accept some of these experiences. I think these experiences are way more common than we realize, but we also have been taught to block them out.
Oh
You know,
yes.
kids remember past lives, and the parents are just like, "Oh, they're so imaginative."
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, maybe, but also maybe not. Maybe they're tapping into something.
Yeah. When I was first thinking of doing this podcast, I happened to mention it one day at lunch with my dad and my uncle and my brother, and my uncle and brother started joking about it and about the topic, and eventually I just sat there for a while because I didn't want to get in an argument or whatever, but they just kept on going with it. Eventually, I spoke over them, which I never do to my uncle or anyone in my family, and that's above me in that position. And I just said, "Well, I'm not interested in talking about this anymore." And they just went quiet, like
Nice.
they didn't realize I was serious. And you know, and again, I don't necessarily really blame them. It's the culture. It's the way society is now. And but they never picked on me about that again. And
And
they're not into it, but they will still ask me sometimes, how is the podcast going?
nice. And that is the probably the only thing that the so-called disclosure movement did is de-ridicule the UFO thing a little bit.
Right.
Like where people didn't feel like they had to make fun of it. Oh, the government actually says there's UFOs. Well, now we can talk about it. And I don't know why anyone feels like they need the government to acknowledge anything, honestly.
Yes.
Or really any
Yeah.
authority figure. If you've had an experience, you've had an experience. You can interpret that as you will. It may be right, it may be wrong. There may not be necessarily a right and wrong. You're defining what that experience means to you. And I also think that they all often start off scary because they're unknown.
Yes.
You're experiencing something completely new that you weren't prepared for in any way. And that's scary. And once you
Oh yeah.
stop fighting it, you start realizing, oh, this really isn't that scary. It seems like it's actually trying to help.
Yeah. My first few experiences as a kid, obviously I was scared at the time. But after having more and more of them over the years, I that fear slowly went away, and I just realized, you know what? I never got any negative feelings from 95, probably 99% of everything I've had experiences with. It's
Yeah.
sometimes it's neutral, sometimes it's positive, but overall I've rarely gotten, and when it was sort of a negative, it felt like a negative experience. It felt like I was sensing a negative presence. Uh, so it wasn't just I've gotten very good at seeing how I feel around whatever happens and going with that and not reacting to it, unless again it seems like it's something that's coming at me or that kind of thing.
Right, right, right. I mean, I've had a few experiences that felt very ominous, but nothing happened. So, like I'm not
Yeah.
all that I had darkness following me around, which was one of the freakier things that has ever happened to me where I used to take walks at night, 2, 3 in the morning, and all of a sudden I'd go out and there'd be Oz effect quiet,
Mm.
absolute silence. And as I walked, I could hear something walking behind me. And it did not match my footsteps, like, because 'cause I'd stop walking and I'd hear it take a couple more steps.
Yeah.
And I'd look behind me and there's nothing there, but when I started walking again, after a second, I'd start hearing it walk behind me again. And it felt mildly ominous, and I don't know if that's just because it was so visceral that, like, I could test it and it was still there. It wasn't just something that happened for a moment and went away, and it would literally happen every single time I went outside. and at night, mind you. During the day, it was fine. And there were times where I came home from like concerts or hanging out with friends or whatever, and other people would be around, everything would be normal. And then they would leave, and I would turn around, walk right back outside, Oz effect. And I'd be like, okay, this is freaking me out a little bit. And I started taking walks in the morning instead, like as the sun was coming up. And eventually I said, no, I got to deal with this. I went outside. I have a big barn. I sat down on the steps going up to the second level. And I literally just said, if you're going to do something, do it, because I'm done with this. And I sat there for about 10 more minutes. And then I got this, like, it sounded like a rush in my ears, like a whoosh. And all the normal sounds came back, and it never happened again. So was
Yeah.
just getting me to face my fear? Was that the whole point? Was it just saying messing with me, playing games? I don't know, you know? But it definitely
Yeah.
felt good to be able to just sit there and be like, "Nope, we're done," and then have everything go back to normal, you know?
Oh yeah. Yeah. And
Eh
I mean, overall now, like the few negative experiences I had, I learned something from them.
Right,
I
right.
learned how to sort of fight back and just sort of use all my, I don't know, my will, my energy, whatever, to push them away and
Yep.
basically tell them, get out of here. I don't need this. And I think that's probably part of why overall I've had very few experiences like that.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree, because a lot of people just constantly approach this stuff as scary. They think it's demonic or whatever, or just scary in general. And they don't really look any deeper into it because they don't know to look deeper into it. There's no one there,
Yeah.
like, when you look at the popular culture of it, it's all scary, It's all, whether it be ghost hunting shows or horror movies or whatever, all the paranormal is scary
Yes.
rather than being something that can empower you. It helps you deal with parts of yourself. Like I said, to me, that was me conquering fear right there. Fear I didn't know I had until it was walking behind me.
Yeah. I had that experience with someone walking behind me a few times. There was a couple of years where I would this church near me has this gymnasium, like a basketball court gymnasium, and they would open it up to people to walk around in the mornings. And this is, oh my, it's been like 12 years or more now, because this is before my light sensitivity, because they have windows, everywhere. And but I used to go there in the mornings, and again, similar thing. Whenever I would be there alone, I would hear footsteps. Now this is a basketball court, so it's a hard floor, and I would hear them on the other end of the basketball court walking around the square, the rectangle as I was, and I would stop, and they'd keep on going for another 2 or 3 footsteps,
Yeah,
and then
yeah.
stop. And so that's when I knew. But again, it didn't feel negative. It was just like there was someone there that was, who knows? I mean, again, I always wonder with all these things too, how often is is the phenomenon happening to two people at two different points in time? Like, were they hearing footsteps from me
Ah, yeah.
as I was hearing theirs? And I mean, who knows? Because again, I didn't get a negative feeling. Nothing else ever happened there. And I also found it hilarious in the way that it was part of a church building, because again, so many churches and things, all this stuff does not exist unless it's evil, or it's some major angel or religious figure within that belief system. But here I'm in this gymnasium, and I'm hearing footsteps, and it cracked me up. Something so basic like that happening.
Huh. Yeah, I don't know what to make of it, but like I said, I whatever it is, whether it means anything or not, I try to derive some sort of meaning from it.
Right.
Like, so even if that didn't wasn't trying to get me to face my fears, I'm still going to treat it that way because it's still valuable for me to do that?
Oh yeah, definitely. Same way with mine. Yep. Yeah. So I was curious about your Kundalini experiences because until I found your show, I never heard of that before.
Yeah. I was having experiences for a long time and never having heard of it before. I wish I had.
Right,
So Kundalini, I mean, it's a Sanskrit word that means, I think it actually means hair of the beloved or something like that. But it represents a serpent of energy that is coiled at the base of your spine, just inside your tailbone. And nowadays, you have Kundalini yoga and stuff in our culture. But when this was happening to me in the 80s, that did not exist. Not in our culture. I mean, it was obviously over in India and stuff, but here we had no equivalent to that. And you can do yoga, meditate, and awaken Kundalini, and it will move up your spine and it will move through your chakras and help you integrate stuff you need to deal with while pushing you toward connecting basically with your higher self or God or whatever you want to call it.
right.
Mine woke up spontaneously, and of course, I had, like I said, I had nothing to put it in, other than the fact that I was getting insane amounts of pain. I felt like someone stabbing a knife into my back that was on fire and twisting it. And it
Yeah,
wasn't until years later that I learned that these were all the spots I was having the pain were all chakras. Because I'd heard of chakras. I heard like Shirley MacLaine talk about chakras, and I was like, "Oh, this is just nonsense." And then when I got a book on Kundalini, which I just happened to see in an ad somewhere, and it was listing all these symptoms, and I went, "Oh my God, I have all of these but one. What is this?" I can't remember if I got that book first or if I think I went to the library and just pulled out books on Kundalini, which they had, and started reading about, like the traditional methods of awakening Kundalini. There's a great one from John White, which is a compilation called Kundalini, something about evolution. I can't remember what the name, but if you look up John White and Kundalini, you'll find the book. And it's a bunch of essays from people from all different cultures and worldviews and stuff talking about different Kundalini experiences, both positive and negative. And that was, I mean, a relief in a lot of ways because I got to be like, okay, I'm not crazy. This is the thing I'm dealing with. So yeah,
yeah,
those experiences completely changed my life. They almost ruined my life for a while because, I would go to doctors, I went to psychologists and all this stuff, and everyone's like, "No, you're fine." I'm like, "I'm not fine. Something is happening."
yeah,
And it would create hallucinations, audio hallucinations, visual hallucinations. I knew they were hallucinations, but they were there nonetheless. And, when you're a kid, that's scary. I'm like, I'm losing my mind. What the hell is going on?
yeah, yeah. I remember the one of the first ones you mentioned before was, and I forget what instrument it was, but there was smoke coming out of
Trombone.
your music. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, I would play the trombone and I see steam or smoke coming out of the end of the bell. And I'd be like, well, that's not real. And I would have my mother come in and she'd sit there. I'm like, tell me if anything comes out of the end of the trombone. And I'd play and there'd be nothing. And she'd be like, no. And I'm like, all right. She'd leave. I'd start playing. I'd see it again. And I'm like, oh, come on. Like, and again,
Yeah.
it's one of those things where, like, I know this isn't real, but I'm looking at it. So what do I do with that?
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's fascinating, and it always reminds me of when I have had experiences with seeing things, and they've been clear across the room, which I should not be able to see. And again, it took me years to figure out, and it was through talking with people about it that I wasn't physically seeing it. There was seeing it some other way with my mind or something like that. And
Right.
so it's perception is a fascinating thing, and how that works, and how we perceive things in the different ways. And it always is amazing to me when I hear accounts from people who they were with a group of people, and I know you have a couple like this too, where there's two or three or more people, and they all experience different things.
Yeah. Mostly I've had experiences where I've been with two other people and one person will see what I'm seeing and the other person won't see anything.
Right.
And it's just kind of like, okay, how's that happening?
Yeah. Yeah, because then, I mean, what is different about the three of you? I mean, yes, there's differences, but what is different that is causing that specifically?
Right, exactly. In one case, it was myself and a girlfriend who I was very, who also had active Kundalini, and we were very, very close. So we were seeing these little lights fly around us, whereas the third person with us, who turned out to be a narcissist, um, was not seeing anything.
Hmm.
We were just like, that's bizarre. And they also shot off right as we came to our other friends, because this was in the middle of a graveyard at night. We heard them, and as soon as we heard them, the lights just darted off and out, just in all different directions. They just left. And my girlfriend looks at me and she's like, "Did they just?" I'm like, "Dart off in different directions." Yep. And she's like, "All right, that was weird." So we were able to
Yeah,
that we were both seeing the exact same thing, and it wasn't just that we were seeing lights; we were seeing the same lights.
right. Yeah, that's always fascinating to me. And I mean, I do wonder how much of one's sort of way of thinking does or doesn't allow these experiences. But then also you hear of people that never believed in any of these things, and they still have an experience somewhere, which is
Yeah,
also fascinating. That whole spectrum of belief or acceptance versus the phenomenon itself, and how does all that work? Where some people that have no interest or think all of this is fake have experiences, and but then others that are in the same boat never do.
yeah. Who was it? Michael Sherman that had the watch incident.
Is it
Uh,
watch or radio?
Might have been a radio. I think you're right. I think it was a radio. I think I have it saved because I can never remember the story. Let me see. Yes, right here. It was Michael Shermer. So Michael Shermer, prominent skeptic and founder of the Skeptic magazine, had an unusual personal experience that challenged his long-held belief or disbelief in the paranormal. In 2014, shortly after marrying his wife, Jennifer Graff, they moved into their new home together. Jennifer brought with her a broken 1978 transistor radio that had once belonged to her beloved grandfather. Despite repeated attempts to get it working, the radio remained silent. However, on their wedding night, just as Jennifer grew emotional and nostalgic about her grandfather, the long defunct radio suddenly began playing music. The couple was stunned, especially Shermer, who had spent his career debunking supernatural claims. The radio played for about 20 minutes before going silent again, never to work again afterwards. Shermer later wrote about the event in the October 2014 issue of Scientific American, admitting he had no scientific explanation for what occurred and found the experience deeply moving and mysterious. Though still a skeptic, Shermer acknowledged that this event left him more open to the idea that some phenomena might lie beyond the current scientific understanding.
Yeah, that is wild. So you have cases like that, and yeah, that's amazing. I so I had an experience once with the first time I was ever on a podcast for part of it. Uh, I had called into a show, or well, a call-in had been arranged, and once the show came out, I took my old laptop over to visit my dad and my stepmom, and once I got to the house and everything set it all up, as soon as my voice started coming from the laptop, the ceiling fan light turned on,
Hmm.
which I thought was odd, but also I figured, well, they must have a remote. One of them must have a remote for it or something,
Yeah.
because neither of them moved. Um, they were not anywhere near the walls where the switches were at. But I thought, well, I'm sure it's just a remote control or something. And so my call on that show ended, and I stopped the recording. Turns out that light had never worked in that fan since my stepmom had moved into the house. And this stayed on for several minutes before turning off, and it worked for a while after that too,
Wow.
whenever they would try turning on. But then eventually it broke down again. And the fan works, but that light does not work anymore. And so, I mean, what we wonder is this was not long after my grandma had passed away. And so we kind of like to think, I mean, obviously we don't know for sure, but is that it was her sort of showing up at that time, hearing me on a show. This is years before I decided to start doing anything. Showing up and almost giving me a sign like, you should do this.
Yeah.
You should do more of this. Not
Well,
just on other people's shows, yours.
yeah, that is definitely a valid interpretation of that. And looking at Shermer's thing, I realized that it mentions his wife was getting very emotional about her grandpa,
Hmm.
which generates potentially psi energy. I mean, when you see poltergeist activity, there's usually something emotional going on.
Yeah.
So if she was getting emotional and she connected the radio to her grandfather, it may have created a conduit where he could do that. Or, of course, the
Yeah.
other thing is she could have done it without knowing she was doing it. That would be the other option.
Yes. Yeah.
Again,
Yep.
it's impossible to know which is which. It's just
It is.
whichever one you choose, you just go with it, you know?
And again, I don't know 100% for sure that that was my grandma.
No,
Uh,
but it sent you in a good
but
direction.
yeah, yeah. I mean, it's funny because it was, I don't know, a few years later that I started thinking about that. Like, do I want to do this? Do I want to do a show? And at first, I mean, it took me a long time to decide to do it because I was hearing all these other shows that, like, for a while I didn't think I could do as well as they do. Talking and finding topics, and like it took a long time for me to decide to just go for it.
Yeah.
And but I am glad I did because I met so many amazing people in the process. And yeah, so but it I do wonder. I mean, how much of that was, and I mean, if it was random, and if it had nothing to do with my grandma, because there was other activity in that house, then that is quite the coincidence that that
Right.
happened at that time.
I mean, when I started Where Did the Road Go, I when I was considering it, I was like, "Am I good enough to do this?"
Hmm.
You know, like, yeah, I could talk to my friends about this stuff, but they're not really read up on it like I am. But that
Right.
doesn't mean I really know anything. Like, if I talk to someone who really knows the stuff, I'm talking to an author who wrote the book, am I gonna be able to hold my own? And, I actually had Walter Cruttenton come on my music show as a trial run
Mhm.
because he had written The Lost Star: A Myth and Time, talking about how we may be in a binary star system. And I absolutely love that book. That book is amazing. And it was actually part of a dream sort of experience I had where I was seeing another star connected to our sun. It was a combination between that and electric universe stuff. And it was I say dream, but it definitely did not feel like a dream. It felt like I was interacting with something
Oh,
that
yeah.
that offered me information. Said it was a robed figure in a library. And he walked up to me and he said, "These 6 books have everything you could ever wanna know." And I immediately took them, and I opened it up, and that's what I saw. I saw a star connected to our sun the same way like electrons connect, so kind of electrical. And, I was like, "Huh." And then I closed the book and went, "No, I don't just want all the answers, I wanna figure them out." And he said, "Good enough." And then I was out of whatever state that was in. So when I read that book, I was like, "Whoa, this is kind of what I was seeing in the book I was shown." And I reached out to Walter and said, "Would you come on? I'm thinking of doing this as a show." And he said, "Yes." And I was like, "All right." And I was nervous as hell.
Oh, yeah.
And when we got done, I said to him, I'm like, "So what do you think? Should I do this as a show?" And he said, "You absolutely should do this as a show." I was like, "Okay, that's what I needed to know." He's
Yeah.
like, "You were more well prepared than most hosts, and you're not even doing an actual show."
And that is one of the things I love is your author interviews because with my situation I'm in now, I can only do audiobooks.
Right.
And there's so many books that are just they've not been turned into audiobooks yet. And so whenever you have an author on that talks about any of these things, I always appreciate that because I can't easily just go get that book.
Yeah. Kindle doesn't read to you?
It will, but it's it's not the best voice.
Yeah, that's what I
Uh,
figured.
And also, I've noticed in doing that on my PC, I have to keep in that window for it to keep going,
Oh, of
which
course.
is odd.
Yeah.
'Cause there's other things, other screen reading stuff out there where you can, have something playing and still be looking at other things, and but not with Kindle apparently.
Of course not. That sucks. Um, yeah, and I mean the reason I haven't had more authors on is really since COVID, I have not had the concentration I used to.
Right.
Uh, I never fully recovered from long COVID, and like sometimes I could sit down and read for hours, but I used to do that without a problem, and now
Oh
like
yeah.
focusing is hard. Like, and I'm just like, this sucks, you know? I used to if there were multiple copies of a book out there and one was like 600 pages and one was 3, I'd be like, "No, I want the 600-page book. I want all
Yes.
the info." And now I'm like, "Whose book is the shortest?" You know, like which one am I most likely to get through quick?
Yep.
And I
Yeah.
want
No.
to
Sorry.
I said I want to read them quite badly. It's just
Yes.
getting into that mind state where I can stay focused and not just like actually process what I'm reading, not just read it.
Well, audiobooks are great, as long
Yeah.
as you can stay completely awake and aware for the whole thing.
I usually
And
listen
then,
to audiobooks when I'm driving.
right, that's a good. That's probably what I would need to do if I could drive,
Right, right,
because I'm sitting here at home and I'm just relaxing and boom, I'm out. And then I wake up, I realize I gotta go back and figure out where I was at.
right.
And first world problems, but they're real.
It is frustrating because
But
you don't always know because you'll listen to a bit and be like, "Did I hear this bit? No,
yeah,
no." I mean, it's just like losing your place in a book and you're flipping through going, "Okay, which part did I read? That doesn't
yeah.
look familiar." And then you start reading it, it's like, "No, I read this. Okay. This is not where I was."
Well, especially with nonfiction, because they're going to be, layering in the same things and then adding new things, but they're still going to go back to things that they've covered in the book earlier, just in saying it in different ways. And so, yeah, it's a. I got sometimes I'll bookmark things before I start listening just to like so I have that and I can go back there. Because otherwise, I'll lose my place.
And there's always that stuff you're gonna gloss over too.
Oh yeah,
I'll
yep.
pick up a book that, I had read part of the page and I'll be like, "Where did I leave off? Oh, I don't remember this," and I'll start reading it, and then I'll remember the next paragraph and be like, "What? How come I didn't remember the previous paragraph?" Yeah.
Yeah. The other thing too I notice is like if I'm interested in the book, but then it goes into something I'm really not interested in, then that's difficult to
Yes.
keep
Oh,
on
yeah,
going
totally.
through. Like,
That
uh, sorry, go ahead.
that was my problem with some of Graham Hancock's stuff, like, when he did Supernatural. Like, when he starts off with the cave art and trying to connect it to shamanism and stuff like that, it's not that it wasn't interesting, but because he knows people are going to criticize him, he's giving you example after example after example after and I'm going, "Okay, I believe you. Can we move on?" You know?
That's the issue I've had with listening to books on some of the famous UFO or abduction cases where when they get to the part, and they always do somewhere, it seems like, where the people that had the experience start going through hypnosis.
Oh, yeah.
And I've listened to enough shows, one of them is yours, but just other shows too, where I just don't, I can't just completely trust or not trust, but I can't completely, be sure what's going on there.
No, it is not a useful tool for this type of stuff because we can't verify it. Like there was a case where a guy, is it the license plate number or something of a this guy kidnapped like a school bus full of kids and buried it in the desert. And he was hypnotized to remember like the license plate or something because he saw it happen. And he remembered the license plate accurately. And it helped them find the kids. It's a crazy story, but like it's one of those things where hypnosis did help recover a memory.
Right.
But also they were able to validate that, because it was the correct number and they were able to find and then what makes me think of what it makes me think of is did he remember that under hypnosis because they were able to validate it. You
Right.
know, like people who do remote viewing will say their accuracy is way higher when they're given the information after the fact. Like if they're shown, okay, yes, you were accurate. This is what it was. Their accuracy when they do the remote viewing beforehand is higher, which makes me again think of that retro causality thing. That maybe he was able to remember the license plate number because later they found the school bus or the van or whatever it was.
Right.
Um, so yeah, I mean, retrocausality could be playing a part in that, but with alien abductions, I mean, our brains are so suggestive that if you think, "Oh, I've been abducted by aliens," you get hypnotized. You're definitely going to remember being abducted by aliens, but that doesn't mean that's what happened.
Yeah. And that's why I don't ever plan on being hypnotized when it comes to
Yeah,
my own experience that I had. I don't. Um, it's not. I mean, I remember enough of it to know that something happened,
right.
and that's good enough for me. And I don't want to take the chance of my memories being messed up by that process.
Exactly, and I wish the UFO community would stop using it. Like, they don't
Hmm.
really as far as I know, they don't use it as much in the UK. Jenny
Okay.
Randall's did a good job of getting that through to them over there, but over here, it is still rampant. I mean, you got entire narratives being built just off hypnotically regressed memories. You know, starting with people like Bud Hopkins doing it and, the other guy whose name I can't think of.
With David Jacobs.
David Jacobs, yes, who was just I mean, I Bud Hopkins and John Mack seem to be, for the most part, uh, trying to help, you know?
Hmm.
Jacobs was just creepy. I mean, the stuff with Jacobs and Emma Woods, if you haven't heard those tapes, there are some in there that are really disgusting. And he basically also convinced her that she was schizophrenic using hypnosis.
Oh,
And
jeez.
all this other it was so damaging and so misused. And you didn't see Bud Hopkins or John Mack doing that type of stuff.
Right.
Um, but you did see, you know, Carol Rainey said Bud Hopkins, adjusted some data. You know, so someone would see something in hypnotic regression. It was sort of similar to something someone else saw. He would modify them so that they were the same thing. And when she caught him doing it, she said, "Well, what are you doing? You're changing data." And he's like, "Well, we already know this is what's happening. I'm just making the data look a little more convincing for the people who are going to doubt me," which I feel is like sort of a confirmation bias sort of thing. Like, yeah, it's the wrong thing to do, but he thinks he's doing it for the right reason. He thinks he has the answer and he just wants to be more convincing about it.
Yeah. And I mean, that's the thing is so tricky about all this is people they come to a conclusion about how all this works, and then they want to stick to that. They don't want to hear about other stuff that doesn't go with what they're thinking. And I get that, but also, I mean, look at how fractured everything is now. I think because of that. Because of that,
Yeah.
you have the two big thoughts are all aliens are evil or all aliens are good,
Mhm. Mhm.
which cracks me up because I don't even just based on people's experiences and all that. That's not if you look at everything, that's neither of those are right.
Correct. Yeah. No, there I've always used the analogy of, you know, to a mouse, a cat is a horrifying monster to but to us, they're adorable, you know?
Oh yeah,
It's just it's
most of the time.
perspective. Yeah, most of
Yeah,
the time. That's fair.
most of the time. But yeah, yep. It's perspective is definitely a big thing, and that's really why at this point now, like I said, I always go with. I mean, I keep two things in mind. If I have an experience, I go with how I feel about it,
Mhm.
and then I also keep in the back of my mind, I could be wrong about that,
Sure.
and just observe. And that's the other thing I do too is I don't at this point, I don't try to have experiences or ask for more when something happens, uh, just in case.
Yeah, the more it might not be what you want.
Well, because with my eyes and everything and all that other thing, I have a lot of that happens here and there is just out of body experiences or just weird glimpses into like other versions of reality when I sleep. So my sleep is not the best anyway, as it is. I
Right.
don't I don't want to be having more of those experiences than I already do.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Yeah, so there are definitely times where I feel like I'm being told stuff in dreams, and then like my alarm will go off, and it'll be like, "Nope, sorry, was in the middle of a lesson. Hang on, snooze."
Yeah, yeah. I It's so weird. I never used to consider the possibility of there being like other versions of this reality for a long time until I started having these weird experiences with it.
Yeah.
And just having being in houses where no one, only like one person that I know lives there anymore now, but like the whole family's there, and I have like half siblings in some of these places that I do not have here. um, just
Hmm.
odd things. One case where I wound up in a house that again, no one in my family lives there anymore, but I wound up there, and my dad and my brother-in-law basically like tried to attack me, which
Oh, wow.
is not at all what they are like, you know,
Right.
in this world. And I just ran out, and so it's not even like I could say, oh yeah, these are amazing, and I'm happy to have these all the time. No, not really, because you have that case, and then you have another case where I found myself in this other house, and I knew from years ago, and I knew I wasn't supposed to be there, and I tried to go back to sleep to get back here. It took like 3 times of trying to go to sleep there to get back here.
Right. Right. And
So
I've been trapped in that sort of altered state dreamscape where
yeah,
I'm like, "Oh, I'm dreaming. This isn't real. I should wake up." And then I wake up and I'm like, "Nope, I'm still dreaming." And I go in a cycle where I can't get myself awake. And I remember there was one time where it happened, and this was just so freaky because I finally was able to snap myself out of it. I woke up, I started to sit up, and something grabbed me, like physically grabbed me and pulled me back down onto the bed, and I went out again. And that just freaked me out because nothing like that has ever happened before or since. And but it pushed me, pulled me. It felt like being pulled deep underwater. Like I was now back in a very deep dream space that was very lucid and not like a normal dream. And I don't remember the rest of it at this point. I'm quite sure I wrote it all down. I certainly hope I wrote it all down. Um, but it was such a freaky experience to feel like something physically pull me back into a dream state. Kind of
yeah,
like Nightmare on Elm Street or something.
yeah. Looking at the chat here, uh, Ricky says I woke up instantly when I fell asleep. That one in my, I laid down and said I needed to get some sleep or some rest, and boom, I woke up here. Luckily, I haven't been trapped. Yeah. Um, and there was one case I had one night where I I fell asleep, and I found myself in this double wide trailer that used to belong to my dad and former stepmom, and then after them it was my brother's and his wife's trailer for a while. And I was there, and nothing looked familiar. All the furniture was different, and then sitting next to me was my cat Logan, which is also weird. But I've had experiences with her being with me before too. But this time she was there, and I went to pick her up because we weren't supposed to be there. And she bit my arm, which didn't hurt. But what happened was, once she did that, I started to wake up
Mm.
and started to wake up. But then, boom, right back in that trailer again. And this happened like 5 or 6 times, and every time it happened, it was getting a little bit darker outside. And I started hearing someone moving around in the back of the trailer. And I saw a truck pull up to the side of the street right in front of the trailer. So all this stuff was going on while I was in there. And the last time I finally just, once I was able to escape. I just woke up. I just stayed up for a while after that night because it was weird. I could feel or sense that I was not supposed to be there. Wherever, if it was this world or not, I don't know. I don't think so technically because it was light there when I started.
Mhm.
But yeah, and it just fascinated me that Logan was the one that had to pull me out of there, is what it seemed like. And it took so many tries to do it.
Yeah, that is interesting. It's like, yeah, the spirit of the cat went with you.
Well, there was one other time when I first moved in here, uh, when I had a dream and that I was hearing her and moving around on my couch bed that I'd been laying on that night when I went to bed. And I looked over and to the couch bed, and she was sitting on it, and she was staring down an exact replica of her. But I could sense that this other cat was not her, and they were having a stare down. And then I woke up, and she was right there on the bed, looking right at me, like, "Is everything okay?" And so she's been my protector a few times, it seems.
Nice. Just not cuddly.
Just not cuddly. She's one of those cats where she'll let you hold her once in a while, but then and she'll be purring and everything. But then as she's purring, she'll start growling
Mm.
as she's purring,
Yeah.
and that's my cue to put her down because
Right, right.
she's done. She may be purring still, but she's also growling, so she's done.
I've had my fill of being held.
Yes. Yep. So, but I was curious, and I don't know if I may have missed this on your show before. So I've heard that these sensitivities or these abilities can travel through families. I was curious if you know of anyone in your family that's also had similar things happen to you,
Nope,
or not.
not at
Wow.
all.
Okay.
I mean, if it did, they never talked about it.
Right.
So
Or maybe it was so far back that the people that maybe had it were not alive at the point where
yeah,
you had it.
possibility. I mean, I
Hmm.
felt a pretty
Okay.
strong connection to my maternal grandmother, but we never talked about paranormal stuff or anything. So I don't know if
That's
she.
fascinating. Yeah. Sorry. Yeah.
But yeah, as far as I
'Cause
know, no one in my family, neither of my parents. I mean, because they knew I was into the paranormal stuff. Neither of them ever talked about anything. Um, my brother said he had a few things, but he never really talked about what they were.
okay. Yeah, because I've just noticed my own family and some other people I've talked to, they have that where they've found they've had experiences and then, talked to other family members and found out, oh, this is not just me. Uh, and I've had that with my own family, so I was just curious about that. But
Nothing there,
that's
unfortunately.
that is amazing though, because then how does how does that work?
I don't know. I'm not like anyone else in my family.
Mm,
So I don't know what that difference is or why.
right. Yeah, I don't know either, and it's all on my family. It's all on one side of my family too. I've noticed from what I've heard.
That
Um,
makes sense.
my my paternal side. It's all on that side.
Well, I mean,
And sorry, go ahead.
I was gonna say my experiences basically started with the Kundalini stuff.
Okay.
So, I mean, everyone has Kundalini energy. It's just usually asleep. So that might be why I had such different experiences and uh, just view everything so differently than anyone else in my family.
Yeah, that makes sense. Um, yeah, I it's all my paternal side, and it's actually from what I've read, heard, it's all my grandma's side of her family going back through them on down to my older sister and I. And so far, from what I can tell, I'm the one with the most experiences out of everyone in my family that I know of. So, um, but yeah, so I'm just curious about that. But I think this is a good place to probably wrap it up for today.
Okay.
And I did want to give you a chance to just share let everyone know where to find you and everything that you do.
Wheredidtheroadgo.com. Links to everything. So, I mean, we're on should be on every podcast provider, or almost every podcast podcast provider, as well as like YouTube and stuff. There's links to all the stuff I do on a link tree that's on wheredidtheroadgo.com that takes you to like my music show and all that type of stuff. So, but wheredidtheroadgo.com is the best place to go for links to everything, including my Discord.
Yeah, and I was on there a while ago, but then I had issues with my account. I've actually lost 2 Discord accounts thanks to that whole two-factor authentication, and just
Oh,
the computer, basically got fried on me, and so I haven't gotten back into all the Discords yet, but eventually maybe I will. But it's hard to keep up with them all anyway, so I don't know.
well,
But
that's the thing. Yeah.
yeah, I'm already part of so many as it is. But well, thank you for being here, and I mean, it was a huge honor, because your show, like I said, I've been listening so long, and so yeah, thank you for being here, and maybe we'll do this again sometime, or I'm always happy to join you on your show too.
Yes, you're always on my list of people to hit up for certain things.
Well, sounds good. Well, thank you, and take care.
Yeah, and thank you.
And thank you all for being here and listening to the show. And I will talk to you all next time.